Well, hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, I want to share with you 10 things that I won't be buying in 2022. And as the year comes to a close, something that I like to do is to take some time to look back on the previous year and then to look forward and think about what do I want my life to look like in the coming seasons. And as I've been doing that, I've identified a few things that I really want to refrain from buying in 2022. And these are all things that I either have already or have wasted money on in the past. And so I really want to challenge myself to refrain from buying them. And this is something that I've been doing for the past few years, and I found it really helpful just to have a goal to stick to. So I'm going to be doing it this year as well. So I have 10 things that I won't be buying in 2022 to share with you, but then be sure to stick around for the end because I want to recap my 2021 no-buy goals and share with you exactly how I did. And spoiler alert, there were some that I did incredibly well with and others where I definitely missed the mark a little bit. So that's the plan, and I am excited to get right into this. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button below and let's get started. So the first thing that I won't be buying in 2022 is plants. And I'm just gonna be honest here, I probably have too many plants right now. I think at my last count I had over 30 plants, which as someone who tends to live a more minimal life is a lot. And so while I love plants and I love the life that they can bring to a space, I think that in 2022, what I want to focus on is caring for the plants that I have well, rather than always trying to figure out, okay, what's the next plant that I'm going to buy? I think it can be really easy for us to always focus on what's next. We get one thing and then immediately our minds go to something else. And so this year, I really want to focus on appreciating what I have, especially when it comes to my indoor plants. Okay, and then the second thing that I won't be buying this year is additional subscription services. And especially for streaming platforms, I feel like there's a new one coming out every week. And for me at least, that can feel a bit overwhelming at times. And so this year, I don't want to get caught up in the subscription service craze and to feel like I need to have them all. Honestly, unless you regularly use a subscription service, it's just a waste of money. And I really want to be a responsible steward of the resources that I have. So this year, I want to stick to the subscription services that we have without adding any. And I'll add one caveat with this one. If I do decide that one subscription service feels like something that I would genuinely use and get value from, then I want to challenge myself to, rather than adding to the subscription services that I'm currently paying for, to have a kind of one in, one out policy where if I'm going to add one, then I need to get rid of one too. And that way it's kind of a net neutral. And then moving on, number 3 is that I don't want to buy clothing that doesn't fit me perfectly. And this is a lesson that I really want to drill home for myself in 2022. I have a really bad tendency to, if I like a particular item, to justify purchasing it based on the fact that I like it, even when it doesn't fit me perfectly. And the problem with that is that even though I might really like that item, I tend to only reach for and to wear clothing that fits me well. And so as a result, there are so many instances that I can point to where I bought an item hoping I would wear it, really loving that item, and then never actually wearing it because it didn't fit properly. So when it comes to clothing this coming year, my motto is going to be, if it doesn't fit and fit well, it's a no. All right, number 4 is that I don't want to buy fast food. And I feel like recently I've gotten into a bit of a bad habit of buying food that's convenient, even though it might not necessarily be what's best for my body or for my wallet. And really, that's not even to mention the fact that my body doesn't feel as good when I'm eating a ton of junk. And so going into the new year, in as much as possible, I really want to eliminate fast food from my diet and instead to come up with some easy, healthy, homemade meal alternatives. Now I will say I might make a small exception for Chick-fil-A because Christopher and I both love it, and sometimes it's fun to have a little treat, but I do want to limit myself to no more than once a month having Chick-fil-A. I think that will be a good balance that can allow us to enjoy a fun treat, but still for the most part, eliminate fast food. And honestly, that's really the only one that's even worth having. And then next, number 5 is a big one, and that's books. And this year, I really want to try using buying a physical book as a bit of a last resort. While I love reading, I don't feel the need to physically own most of the books that I read. And so before just going to buy a book that I want to read, I want to start trying to see if there's maybe a friend that I can borrow a book from, or maybe if I can rent it from our local library. There are a lot of different options that don't require us physically buying a book, and so I really want to try to pursue those first. But then if I do try to exhaust all of my options and I'm still not able to find the book, then I'm going to give myself permission to purchase it. However, I really want to implement a one in, one out rule here as well. So if I buy a book, it means that another one has to leave my bookshelf. I can sell it, I can donate it, I can pass it on to a friend, whatever I want, but it has to leave my life. And that way I'm not just accumulating a ton of books that I'll read once and then never read again. I'm able to read a book, enjoy it, and then pass it on to a friend, or if I think that it's something I'm going to reread, I can pass another book on. Then number 6 is small kitchen appliances. This includes things like toasters, blenders, slow cookers, all of that. And I feel like there are always people obsessed with this kitchen appliance or that kitchen appliance, but at the end of the day, I think most of us make the majority of our meals with a relatively simple and a few number of appliances. And so personally, I want to try to just stick to what's essential. What are the things that I'm going to get the most use out of, and to only own those. For me at least, anything beyond that quickly tends to become clutter and more of a nuisance than a blessing. Then the 7th thing that I won't be buying this year is mass-produced art. And honestly, for years now, I've known that I love meaningful handmade art and prefer it over those kind of mass-produced box store pieces of art and decor. But I will say, in the past year or so, I've noticed myself buying a few more mass-produced decor items than I'd like. And so this year, I want to go kind of back to basics in a way, and to refrain from buying any mass-produced art or decor so that I can instead focus on buying intentionally some thoughtful handmade pieces that are really going to be meaningful to me and that I'm going to want to have in my life going forward. Not just for a season, but for years to come. Okay, and then number 8 might sound like a bit of a weird one at first, but hear me out on this one. I don't want to buy any pantry staples this year. Now, before we really get into this, I want to say up front that, of course, if I run out of a pantry staple that I currently have, I will, of course, give myself permission to buy it. But what I really want to refrain from in 2022 is stocking up on pantry staples. And for me at least, the reasoning behind this one is that when I have multiple things on hand at once, I have a tendency, and it's a bad tendency for sure, of forgetting that I have something, seeing that I have a backup, and then opening up. And this has led to things like the fact that I have 3 different jars of honey all open at once right now. And the same thing also goes for our marshmallows, our rice, and a few other things as well. This really has created a sense of clutter and disorganization in our pantry for me, not to mention the fact that we've literally had a couple of items go bad because we had multiple of them open at once. So as we enter the new year, I really want to focus on using up what we have already and making sure that we're truly out of an item before I buy it. And then just to generally adopt that saying of replace, don't accumulate. I don't need 3 jars of honey open at one time, I just need 1. And then number 9 is board games. And here's the thing, Christopher and I love board games, but if I'm honest, we really do have enough of them. I feel like I'm at, with board games, the same place that I'm at with my plants, where if I'm realistic with myself, I'm kind of at the max number of board games that I'm comfortable with owning. Any more than that probably feels like we have way too many. So while I love board games, I want to focus on using and enjoying the ones that we have. And I feel like there can be a really fun aspect to this kind of thing too, where if you're saying, okay, I'm not going to buy any more of this particular category, whether it's board games, puzzles, maybe it's books for you, it really forces you to go back and to rediscover some of the amazing games that you have that maybe you haven't touched in a long time. And so personally, that's something that I'm definitely hoping to do this coming year. And then finally, number 10 is that I don't want to buy any bakeware or cookware. And in the past year to year and a half or so, we've replaced and upgraded a lot of our cookware. And so I think this one is really kind of a challenge to myself to say, hey, you made some changes and now you have what you need, and now it's time to be content and to not feel like you need to continue adding to your collection or to continue replacing. It's time to be content. I feel like that's something that's important for all of us to keep in mind, is that absolutely there's a time to replace worn out or broken items, but at the same time, I think we can go kind of overboard in not just replacing what's worn out, but maybe tending to accumulate and to keep adding to our collections. So I think it's important for us to take a step back and to be really conscious of the fact that once we've replaced what's no longer working, we can then rest in that and just be content with what we have. All right, well, those are the items that I won't be buying in 2022, and I'm really excited to see how this really challenges me and helps me to grow. But now I want to take a minute to look back on my no-buy rules from 2021 so we can see how I did. So looking back, the things that I said in 2021 that I didn't want to buy were books, cheaply made furniture, cable TV, detox food and cleanses, specialized kitchen gadgets, pants, excess freezer food, pottery mugs, cleaning supplies, and art supplies. And I'd say that for the most part, I did a really good job with following through on each of these. But that being said, there were a couple of exceptions that I wanted to touch on quickly. And so the first exception, or maybe way that I fell short, was with art supplies. And for the most part, I definitely followed this one. I said that I wanted to use up what I have, but I was going to allow myself to buy replacements. And for the most part, this is what I did. However, while I was in Italy, I did pick up one set of 10 watercolor pencils. It's an art form that I'd really been wanting to try for a while, and since I was able to find it in a nice little compact set, I did decide to purchase it, and it's something that I use to kind of sketch out some of my travels, so it's not something that I regret at all, but it is one small way that I did fall short of that one. And then the second one that I didn't quite hit the mark with was pants. At this time last year, I was really happy with the pants that I had, and so I wanted to commit to not buying any new ones in the coming year. Unfortunately though, over the course of the year, I had a few pairs of pants that just completely wore out on me. They developed holes in places where you just can't continue wearing pants. And then a couple others that just stopped fitting me in the same way that they used to. And so I ended up buying, I think it was 3 new pairs of pants in the past year, but what I really tried to do was to have that net neutral effect that we were talking about earlier. So that as I brought these 3 new pairs of pants into my wardrobe, I at the same time decluttered the pairs of pants that I didn't feel confident, comfortable in, or that I realistically couldn't wear in public. And so that was a way that I could buy what I needed while still keeping my wardrobe simple. And then I saved the juiciest of these rules that I broke for last. Books is an area where I absolutely just kind of threw out my no-buy goals for 2021. And I feel like this one was just an absolute miscalculation on my part. Going into the year, I said I wanted to buy no new books at all, and then instead I wanted to focus on reading the books that I already had, because there were a number in my book collection that I had, that I owned, but that I'd never even touched. And that sounds like a great goal, right? I mean, I thought so at least at the time, but the problem was that simultaneously to that, I set the goal of reading 2 books per month, and I very quickly surpassed that to the point where I've read over 40 books this year, and yeah, I'm way past that original goal. So I did exactly what I set out to do. I read all of the books that I owned but had never read, but then I finished off all the books that I owned and had never read, and still had like 7 or 8 months left in the year. So all of that's to say, I did buy a handful of physical books this year and a number of audiobooks as well. Which is why going into 2022, I'm modifying the rules. I still want to focus on not buying books that I don't need. But at the same time, I want to give myself the space and the opportunity to, as I want to, pursue a passion of mine in reading. And so this one for me is just all about balance and really trying to be wise about how I use the resources and the money that I have. But looking back overall, I really do feel like I did well with my 2021 no-buy goals, and it really makes me excited for this upcoming year as well. Now, I'd love to know though, are there any items that in 2021 you committed not to buying, and how did that go? And are there any items that you don't want to buy in 2022? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear all your thoughts, and thank you all so much for watching. Before you leave, don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already for more simple and intentional living videos coming at you twice a week, and follow me on Instagram. I'm at Ashlynne.Eaton on there, and I'm always posting new daily inspiration and updates. That's everything I've got for you today though. I love you all so much, and I'll see you in the next one.